Back in 1665, this one book was published that completely, and I mean completely changed how we see the world. And not with some grand theory about the stars or the universe, but by revealing a hidden world in the most ordinary objects you can imagine. We are talking about Robert Hooke's incredible book, Micrographia. So to get started, let's think about something really simple, something we all think we know. What does the edge of the absolute sharpest razor you can picture, what does it actually look like? Right. To our eyes, it's just this perfect, clean, impossibly thin line. Hooke himself called it a very neat and curious aspect. It looks totally flawless. But what happens when you decide to look a little closer? Well, this is what Hooke saw. Under his microscope, that perfect edge just vanished. Instead, what he saw was a rough, jagged landscape. He wrote that he could not find that any part of it had anything of sharpness. And this one observation, this single moment, kicks off a revolution. It proves that our senses are on a fundamental level lying to us. This discovery led Hooke to a pretty deep philosophical problem. If our own senses can't be trusted with something as simple as a razor's edge, what else are we getting totally wrong? Hooke argued that because our senses are so limited, our understanding of the world must also be, in his words, lame and imperfect. His phrasing here is just incredible. We often take the shadow of things for the substance. We are literally only seeing a tiny fraction of reality and then building all of our knowledge on top of that shaky, incomplete picture. So what's the solution? He proposed a radical shift. You see, the old philosophy was just a work of the brain and the fancy, based on who could win an argument. Hooke championed a completely new way, the real, the mechanical, the experimental philosophy. It was all about returning to observation, to actually looking at material and obvious things, and trusting what you could see and measure. But okay, how do you get past the built-in limits of your own senses? Hooke's solution was as simple as it was absolutely brilliant. You add to them, you supply their infirmities with instruments. Or, to put it another way, you build artificial organs. Just stop and think about that phrase for a second. The microscope wasn't just a tool for him, it was a new eye. It was an extension of the human body that was capable of seeing a reality that was always there, just beyond our natural reach. And with this new artificial eye, Hooke opened up what he called a new visible world. So come on, let's take a quick tour of some of the amazing things he found. First up, the point of a needle. Much like that razor, what we think of as the very definition of sharpness was revealed to be a rough, blunt, kind of battered piece of metal. It turns out even our finest, most precise creations are clumsy and crude at this tiny scale. Then he looked at a tiny, thin slice of cork, and what he saw changed biology forever. He described it as being filled with little boxes or cells distinct from one another. Yes, he was the very first person to use the word cell in a biological sense. And the scale of this was it's mind-boggling. He actually did the math and calculated that a circular piece of wood, just 1 inch across, could contain over 5.5 million of these pores or cells. The hidden complexity of life was just staggering. He turned his lens to a common fly. Its eye wasn't a single orb at all, but this incredible grid of multitudes of hemispheres. And what's truly wild is that he wrote that he could actually see the landscape of his room reflected in each and every one of those tiny individual lenses. He even examined a stinging nettle and discovered it was covered in all these tiny hollow hypodermic needles, perfectly designed to inject what he called a poisonous or vexing liquor. He was basically revealing the elegant and very painful mechanics behind a common plant sting. And brilliantly illustrating his point that you can find wonder absolutely anywhere, he even looked at frozen urine. And he found it wasn't some chaotic mess. It actually formed these beautiful, intricate, 6-branched crystalline structures that looked, to him, like delicate little plants. So you see, all of these amazing discoveries weren't just a catalog of curiosities. No, they were the evidence for an entirely new way of thinking about the world, what Hooke called a reformation in philosophy. And here's the crucial point. Doing this new science, it didn't require being some kind of genius who could just dream things up. It required humility. It required, in his words, a sincere hand and a faithful eye to examine and to record the things themselves as they appear. Just see it, draw it, and write it down. Don't just make it up. And from this powerful foundation, Hooke outlined a clear, repeatable process for understanding the world. It was a method for how to see. The process he described as a cycle, a loop. First, you start with your senses, boosted by your instruments. Second, you store it in your memory by faithfully writing and drawing exactly what you see. Third, you use your reason to analyze what you've recorded. But, and this is the revolutionary part, you don't stop there. You absolutely have to return to the hands and eyes to do more experiments, testing your ideas over and over again in a continuous cycle of observation and verification. And this really is the ultimate takeaway. Micrographia is so much more than a picture book of tiny things. It's a manifesto for evidence-based science. You see, Hooke's true legacy wasn't just about the cool stuff he saw through his microscope. It was about creating the very method for how we see the world today. Which leaves us with a pretty fascinating question to chew on. Hooke's artificial organ opened up the microscopic world back in the 17th century. So what other invisible landscapes are still out there, right now, just waiting for the next great instrument, the next artificial sense to finally bring them into view?